Can you still do the Joker laugh?
Oh, sure.
Well, do a little bit for us.
He dated a number of stunning Hollywood actresses. Everybody he met was enchanted by his star-studded dance moves. However, TV Joker Cesar Romero had a huge secret that might have put an end to his career. The truth has come to light now, decades after his passing. The ideal Latin lover in Hollywood was actually lying. The man's inability to tie the knot wasn't due to a lack of romantic interest. A prison he had constructed for himself had him ensnared. New York City was the site of Cesar Romero's birth on February 15, 1907. Cesar Julio Romero Sr. and Maria Montilla were affluent Cuban immigrants. They were his parents. His father had a prosperous career importing and exporting machinery and sugar. A gifted pianist and singer, his mother was his idol. They belonged to a privileged Cuban-American family, existing in opulence atop Manhattan with butlers at their disposal. As a child, Cesar was surrounded by wealth and power as his family frequently attended social events. Aside from their extraordinary wealth, his family's past was equally remarkable. The revolutionary leader and Cuban poet José Martí was very close to his mother, Maria Montilla. Martí was instrumental in her upbringing and treated her like a daughter, even though he never formally claimed paternity. Adding to the aura of mystery surrounding Cesar's background, his legacy accompanied him throughout his life. Romero's upbringing was indicative of his privileged background. Both the collegiate school in Manhattan and the Bronx's Riverdale Country School were his educational institutions of choice. Academics never piqued his interest, even though he had access to top-notch education. Performing and mingling with others were more of his interests. He discovered his passion for the stage after performing in a school production of The Merchant of Venice. However, his charisma was the true distinguishing factor. He rose to fame in New York's elite social circles after impressing debutante partygoers with his stunning good looks and graceful dancing abilities. Things began to shift for him in the 1920s. The 1929 stock market crash exacerbated the collapse of the Cuban sugar market. Instead of declaring bankruptcy, his father paid off all of his debts with all of his wealth. The opulent lifestyle vanished. It was all of a sudden that Romero needed to get a job. He landed a job at an unsatisfactory Wall Street bank. Financial matters did not excite him. He has previously stated that he has no interest in pursuing a career in any field other than show business. His charisma and attractiveness made him an ideal performer. The banking position was only a stopover. He began his career as a ballroom dancer in the nightclubs of New York City in 1927. His career truly started at that point. Unexpectedly, he got his big break from. After seeing his talent, the rich heiress Elizabeth Higgins gave him the opportunity to start a dance team. Despite his lack of instruction, he exuded assurance and a natural rhythm. It was sufficient. The offer was accepted by him. They quickly found themselves playing at prestigious venues such as the Ambassador Roof and the Montmartre Café. The foxtrot and tango, which were wildly popular at the time, were part of their routines. While the general public was largely unaware of their performances, they left a lasting impression on the city's upper class. Higgins was instrumental in Romero's ascent to prominence. Her assistance made him stand out. Along with that, she encouraged him to keep going. When an injury ended their dancing career in 1929, their partnership came to an end. It was a disappointment, but it motivated Romero to move forward. He resolved to devote himself entirely to acting. His career was about to take the next step onto Broadway. His stage debut was in 1927's Lady Doe, which played 56 times at the Liberty Theater in Manhattan. His interest in the theater blossomed, and he showcased his dancing abilities by dancing a variety of ballroom dances. His rise to fame, however, was due to an act that was completely dishonorable. In the role of Count d'Aruvo, he showcased the charming, idealistic image that would characterize a significant portion of his tenure in Hollywood. He appeared in Dinner at 8, a Broadway musical that ran for over 300 performances, solidifying his reputation as an actor by 1932. As a dancer, he had already achieved greatness. As an actor, he had already established himself. Everyone in Hollywood noticed. In the early 1930s, Hollywood was on the hunt for actors who could captivate audiences with their refined personalities. That picture was spot on for Romero. In 1933, he made his film debut in Arthur Horrell's mystery picture The Shadow Laughs. This occurred in the pre-code era, when film themes were less restrained due to lax censorship regulations. In a story heavy on crime, Romero played the part of Tony Rico, a supporting character. Even though the picture bombed, it was his big break in the business. It wasn't a spectacular entrance, but it got him started. There was no denying Romero's screen presence. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall, had striking good looks, and a distinctive mustache. His portrayal as a smooth-talking romantic in Hollywood films swiftly categorized him as a Latin lover. Despite its lack of success, The Shadow Laughs opened doors to greater opportunities. He made appearances in both British Agent, 1934, and The Thin Man, 1934, the following year. Although these parts brought him fame, he wished he could break free of any one stereotype. In 1935, he had a breakthrough role in The Devil is a Woman, which he co-starred with Marlene Dietrich. Joseph von Sternberg directed this, the final of Dietrich and Sternberg's 6 films together. Dietrich portrayed the manipulative femme fatale Concha Perez in the film adaptation of Pierre Louis' 1898 book, The Woman and the Puppet. Antonio Galvan, a youthful revolutionary captivated by her charisma, was portrayed by Romero. He co-starred with a legendary star of the time when he was only 28 years old. His performance was met with mixed reviews from critics. While some thought Dietrich was too prominent, others appreciated the complexity he added to Antonio's character. Playing the part demanded vulnerability and charisma. Problems arose behind the scenes of the production. In addition to Paramount Pictures' financial woes, Sternberg's meticulous filmmaking style was a major contributing factor. The film had a shaky run when it opened in March 1935. Marketing was a challenge due to the film's controversial themes, but critics eventually praised the cinematography and artistic direction. This film demonstrated to Romero that he was capable of playing nuanced parts. It was also an indication of his early career risk-taking attitude. He was hell-bent on shattering Hollywood's perception of him as a romantic hero. That is precisely what he accomplished in 1937. His role as the rebel leader Kota Khan in John Ford's Wee Willie Winkie, which takes place in India under British colonial rule, is spot on. He had never done anything like this in his prior roles. Even though the film featured Shirley Temple, the most famous child star of the era, Romero still managed to leave an impact. He gave Kota Khan a charismatic and menacing performance, elevating him beyond the villain role. He proved he could handle dramatic parts outside of romance thanks to Ford's direction, which allowed him to give the character depth. With the financial success of Wee Willie Winkie, Temple's star power was further cemented and Romero finally received the recognition she sorely needed. Strangely, he hadn't finished shocking people yet. He played the role of the Cisco Kid from 1939 to 1941, succeeding Warner Baxter, who had won an Oscar for the role in 1929. Romero appeared in 6 films as the Cisco Kid, the most notable of which are Viva Cisco Kid, 1940, and The Cisco Kid and the Lady, 1939. Even though they weren't big-budget features, these films were a smash hit with Western audiences. Actor Romero injected charm, energy, and humor into the role of the outlaw-turned-hero known as the Cisco Kid. As far as acting gigs go, this was a big deal. The opportunity to bypass Hollywood's strict casting process presented itself. Romero demonstrated he could sustain a franchise during an era when Latinx actors were underrepresented in leading roles. When Cesar Romero made an unexpected decision, he was at the height of his Hollywood career. With nearly 50 films under his belt, he willingly joined the United States Coast Guard in 1942. He was 35 years old, a household name, and an established figure in Hollywood. He could have remained in Hollywood, but he felt obligated to do more. He became a national celebrity upon his enlistment on October 22, 1942. Being enlisted as a regular seaman was unusual for a famous person of his stature. Romero enlisted in the Coast Guard in Alameda, California, at the West Coast Boot Camp. Despite the rigorous training, he never once requested preferential treatment. He asked for active duty and was sent to the Coast Guard attack transport ship USS Cavalier, unlike many stars who were given non-combat responsibilities. His work was strenuous. Invasion operations relied on his skill operating deck cranes to transfer vehicles and landing craft. After beating out younger sailors for the position, he was named first powderman on a 5-inch gun during combat. He was just another enlisted man, fame and all. Between 3:30 and 5:30 in the morning, his day began. He kept morale up by cleaning his quarters and doing other mundane tasks. To top it all off, he planned variety shows to keep the workers amused. Refusing to spend more than his military salary of $76 per month, he lived simply. He preferred unprivileged service. "I'm content to start at the very bottom," he once declared. That's the most effective method for understanding everything. His colleagues in the military held him in high esteem because of his modesty. He was a soldier who saw some of the Pacific's bloodiest conflicts. Under intense enemy fire on June 15, 1944, he transferred troops, landing craft, and heavy equipment from the Cavalier to the shore during the invasion of Saipan. It was a terrible fight. Although Romero did more than what was required of him. In order to aid injured Marines, he donated blood. In an operation that helped secure air bases for Allied forces, he was a part of the invasion of Tinian a few weeks later on July 24, 1944. The leadership and commitment of Romero were greatly appreciated. A first-class seaman was his rank by April 1944. He worked his way up the Coast Guard ranks and eventually became Chief Boatswain's Mate, the highest non-commissioned officer position. There was a grave threat to his ship. Japanese kamikaze pilots attempted to alter the course of the war by attacking Allied ships during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944. The crew of the Cavalier battled valiantly to accomplish their objective. A man with an extraordinarily fine character, Romero's captain lauded him later, praising his bravery in the face of adversity. Romero made his way back to Hollywood in 1945, when the war finally ended. His rapid return from his 3-year hiatus dispelled any concerns that it may have negatively affected his career. His 1947 performance as Hernán Cortés in Captain from Castile, in which he landed a major role, became one of his most acclaimed performances. He was further cemented in his roles as entertainer and cultural ambassador when 20th Century Fox dispatched him on a goodwill tour of South America alongside fellow actor Tyrone Power. When television began to revolutionize the entertainment industry, Cesar Romero was already a household name in Hollywood. He made it look easy, in contrast to many actors who had trouble adjusting. He was able to maintain his relevance thanks to his charisma and adaptability. His early TV roles demonstrated his ability to play any role. From 1954 through 1958, Romero portrayed Steve McQueen, a diplomat's courier entangled in global intrigue and passport to danger. With an IMDb rating of 7.1, the show was on for 4 seasons. Charm and brains were more important to McQueen than strength, in contrast to other action heroes of the era. Audiences adored Romero because of his natural acting performance. He also had a 3-episode arc from 1957 to 1959 in Disney's Zorro, where he played the role of Diego's naughty uncle. With his comedic timing and ability to propel the plot forward, Romero's character contributed to the series' success by fusing action with historical drama. Rawhide, starring Clint Eastwood, featured him in a cameo role in 1959. His performances in these parts demonstrated that he was more than simply a movie star who made cameos on television. He excelled in television and managed to give each role a rich complexity that made him stand out. After that, he landed the part that would cement his place in pop culture history. In 1966, Romero joined ABC's Batman as the Joker, making him the first actor to do so in a live-action series. Some initially doubted his suitability for the role. For many years, he had played the role of charismatic leading man. Do you think he could actually become a villain from a comic book? As soon as he appeared on screen, the answer became apparent. In keeping with the show's campy tone, his Joker was theatrical, unpredictable, and utterly outrageous. His stubborn refusal to trim his beard was one of the show's most peculiar features. Rather than compel him to take it off, the producers simply applied white makeup over it. You can barely make out its outline on today's ultra-high-definition displays. However, rather than appearing out of place, it contributed to the distinctiveness of his Joker. Despite the show's playful tone, Romero's Joker wasn't merely a joke. Even though they were never shown on screen, some of his crimes were truly disturbing. An entire jury and the judge's wife were taken captive by him, according to a casual comment in an episode. All the while, these subtle touches kept the show entertaining while hinting at a darker side of the character. Actors such as Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson were influenced by Romero's portrayal of the Joker, which shaped the character's portrayal for decades. Despite the changes that occurred in television in the 1980s, Romero maintained his success. He became a part of Falcon Crest, a CBS primetime soap opera that was very popular in 1985. He portrayed Greek shipping magnate Peter Stavros, who rekindles his romance with Jane Wyman's Angela Channing. Love and drama weren't his only motivations. The show's power struggles were further complicated when he assisted Angela in reclaiming her winery empire. Falcon Crest was one of the top 10 most watched shows on television from 1985 to 1987, and Romero appeared in 51 of those episodes. Although viewers were already engrossed in high-stakes family drama, his addition elevated the show to a whole new level of complexity and mystery. After more than half a century in the entertainment industry, he possessed the same magnetic charisma that catapulted him to stardom. Cesar Romero was a charismatic and fashionable figure in Hollywood. Even though he was in the public eye for a long time, many details about his life were unknown. Years of guesswork ensued because he never tied the knot or started a family. At first glance, he appeared to be the ideal Latin lover, often spotted with stunning ladies like Carole Lombard and Joan Crawford. However, there were other goings-on behind the scenes. Actors in Hollywood claimed he was single and unmarried. He was in committed relationships with multiple women but never found a permanent partner. While some thought he just liked being on his own, others thought there was more going on. Some Hollywood insiders and biographers later speculated that Romero was gay. Although some questioned the authenticity of the book, which came out 2 years after Bo's death in 1994, some posthumous interviews published in Bose Hadley's Hollywood Gaze claimed that he had confirmed it himself. Despite living during an era when being openly gay could be disastrous for a career, Romero remained popular with Hollywood for many years. More rumors circulated about his tight friendship with actor Tyrone Power. After meeting at 20th Century Fox, the two became fast friends. They embarked on a 3-month reciprocal tour of Latin America in 1945. Until Power's unexpected death in 1958, when he was 45 years old, they stayed close. Although Romero was very private about their relationship, it was a defining moment in his life. He wasn't a bachelor because he couldn't find a suitable partner. He may have been protecting himself by remaining single in an industry that demanded conformity, even though he had plenty. Perhaps it was true what he said, he was immune to marriage when he was younger. Perhaps escaping the scrutiny of Hollywood was the easier option. Romero's penchant for fashion was as well known as his acting chops. He insisted on appearing presentable at all times. He possessed an illustrious collection of more than 500 suits, 30 suits and 200 athletic jackets. "If you want to live your best life," he once said, "you should never wear the same thing twice." He still wouldn't shave his mustache, even for the 1966 Batman series, in which he played the Joker. The makeup artists were forced to cover it up instead. His extravagant way of life wasn't for show. He relished the opportunity to be among the Hollywood A-list. He was a regular at the Coconut Grove nightclub's exclusive parties and all the big premieres. It was said that he would even make an appearance at a serviette opening. His glitzy persona belied his undying love for his loved ones. Even though Romero came from a wealthy family in 1907, they were wiped out by the Great Depression. He assumed the duty of providing for them after he became successful in Hollywood. Throughout his life, he lived in close quarters with his family rather than a lonely mansion. As vital as his career was to him, so were his friendships. They maintained a close relationship for many years. Her children even affectionately referred to him as Uncle Butch, and she felt he was an integral part of her inner circle. Although his relationship with Tyrone Power was unique, it was no less significant. They stayed close until Power's tragic death, traveled together, and shared private moments away from the limelight. Romero was very committed to his family even though he never got married or had any children of his own. He was known to be kind, generous, and consistently charming, and he lived with many of his relatives. His success in an industry that frequently required conformity is a testament to his perseverance. Despite the fact that he had to conceal some aspects of his identity, he never allowed it to diminish his achievements. Cesar Romero remained in the limelight at all times. Long after he had established himself in Hollywood, in the late 1960s, he continued to find new fans through Disney comedies. He portrayed A.J. Arnaud, a businessman who ran an underground gambling ring, in the 1969 film Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. The part was tailor-made for Romero, whose smooth villain charm contributed to the film's cult classic status. Joining Kurt Russell as Dexter Riley in 1972's Now You See Him, Now You Don't and 1975's The Strongest Man in the World, he reprised his role as Arnaud. Romero proved that his charisma could captivate any audience with these films, which introduced him to a younger generation. His work ethic never wavered, even as he aged. Even though he was well into his 70s, he continued to appear as a guest star on hit TV shows. In an exquisitely shot 1985 episode of Murder, She Wrote, he portrayed a dapper artist. His 1990 appearance as Sophia's romantic interest Tony Del Vecchio on The Golden Girls was a fan favorite because it demonstrated that he had maintained his charisma throughout the years. These parts kept him in front of fans who had watched him since he was a kid, and they loved him for it. Hollywood will never forget Romero, even after he retired from acting in 1990 after over 60 years in the business. A star at 6615 Hollywood Boulevard and another at 1719 Vine Street on the Hollywood Walk of Fame honor him for his work in film and television, respectively. In recognition of his outstanding contributions to Latino representation in Hollywood, he was honored with the Nosotros Golden Eagle Award and the Imagen Hispanic Media Award for Lifetime Achievement. It was Romero's goal to increase the visibility of Latino actors from the beginning of his career. He would not be confined, even though he was frequently cast in the early days as the Latin lover. He broke barriers by playing a variety of roles, including those involving Latinos, which paved the way for actors like Edward James Olmos and Anthony Quinn. The fact that he was successful proved that Hollywood would not turn a blind eye to talent. Cesar Romero, in his twilight years, found peace and quiet in Beverly Hills. Despite his 1990 retirement from acting, he never faded into oblivion. By hosting classic film programs on cable television, he discovered a new way to maintain connections to Hollywood. The part was tailor-made for him thanks to his extensive filmography and endearing charisma. His work continued to transport fans of classic Hollywood even after he retired from acting. His taste for elegance was evident in Romero's home. His impeccable taste was always a hallmark of his personality. That remained unchanged as people got older. Just his clothes were legendary. 30 suits, 200 sport coats, and a tuxedo. A part of living well, in his opinion, was dressing well. His appreciation for elegance went beyond the realm of clothing. He stocked his Beverly Hills mansion with vintage automobiles, each one a symbol of a bygone age when glitz and glamour meant something. He maintained his active social life even after retiring. He was the life of the party, showing up to flashy events in his finest attire and commanding attention at every turn. His humor was always sharp. He made light of the fact that people his age were buried in cemeteries by jokes about dating younger women far into his 80s. As usual, Romero was quick with a joke and had a sharp mind. His charisma drew people in. And he was always the center of attention. He had a second side, though, and few people saw it. It was important to Romero to give back. He was a silent philanthropist who frequently spent Thanksgiving feeding the homeless at the Los Angeles Mission. Those in need were always on his mind, despite his penchant for the finer things in life. The well-tailored suits and impeccable demeanor belied a man with a generous soul, and this served as a gentle reminder of that. Although his retirement was devoid of scripts and cameras, it was anything but dull. He accomplished all three. He lived lavishly, maintained meaningful relationships, and made a positive impact in his own unique way. Cesar Romero was 86 years old when he died on January 1, 1994. His death occurred at Santa Monica's St. John's Hospital as a result of a blood clot, pneumonia, and complications from bronchitis. A 60-year career came to a close with this. A career that made an indelible impression on the film industry. Many people would always remember him as the Latino from New York City. He had played villains who stole the show as well as charming leading men. His performance as the Joker in the Batman TV series from the 1960s was legendary. Even with the white face paint, he laughs like a clown, is extremely energetic, and refuses to shave his mustache. For all actors who would play the part thereafter, he set a very high standard. Few close friends and family members attended his private funeral. His remains were laid to rest in a heart-shaped urn in the Golden West Mausoleum at Inglewood Park Cemetery. It was an appropriate memorial service for a man whose life had been rich with creativity, joy, and music. Cesar Romero's impact continues to be felt even after all these years. He broke new ground as one of the most famous Latino performers of his day. He was more than simply a Hollywood star. There is no denying his impact on the industry, which led to him receiving multiple accolades, including a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was as if an era had come to a close with his passing on New Year's Day. His charisma, talent, and indisputable presence, however, will guarantee that he will be remembered forever.